What else can we do with strings? For instance, we can concatenate them. Concatenation means unifying two or more strings into a single string. You can do this using the plus operator, like you would when adding two numbers. So let's try this. Let's set x with the value of Cisco and y with the value of space switch. And finally, let's add them together. So x plus y, Cisco switch, and the concatenation has been successfully completed. Another thing we can do is string repetition by using the multiplication operator. So x times 3 returns Cisco 3 times, which is again correct. Nice. You can also verify if a character is in a string or not using the in and not in operators. This may prove to be useful when dealing with huge strings. So let's look at x again and check if the character O is part of this string. So O in between double quotes in x returns true. Great. Now let's try another one. For example, B in x returns false because there is no letter B in x. But if we use B not in x, this will result in true because we negate the existence of letter B in Cisco, which is indeed true. Now, what's the deal with string formatting? Let's say we have some kind of a string template and we want to constantly modify only a few words inside the text, but keep the overall template the same. To see what I mean, let's just assume we have the following string. Doesn't matter what it stands for, just focus on the string itself. We want to keep this string as a template and just change the model name for the Cisco router, the number of slots, and the iOS version a couple of times when running our Python program. So this would need to be a dynamic change each time. For this, we should use the percent operator, followed by S for string, D for digit, or F for a floating point number. Let's see the syntax for this. Now let's translate this. The %s means that this is a placeholder for a string we will specify in between parentheses at the end of this line. The %d operator follows the same logic, but for a number instead of a string. And finally, the %f right here refers to a floating point number, a number with a decimal point. Now, moving on, the first value from within the parentheses, this one, is going to be associated with the first format operator in the string, the %s. The second value from within the parentheses is going to be associated with the second format operator in the string, the %d, and so on for all the format operators you have in your string. Also, do not forget to insert the % between the string and the parentheses containing the values. This operator maps the format operators inside the string with the values inside the parentheses. So let's see this in action. Let me hit enter. Now let's change the values a couple of times to prove that the template remains unchanged, only the values are changing. Something you might have noticed is the addition of several decimal plates when dealing with floating point numbers. In order to control this behavior, you can easily choose the number of decimal places that you want to print out. Let's get back to our string and simply insert a dot and a value in between the % operator and the letter F. If we want just a single digit after the floating point, we should use .1 like this. For 2 digits, we should use .2, of course. Finally, if we want no digits at all and no floating point, we can just enter a dot and we will get the value 15 in return. So let's try this. .f. Okay, that's awesome, right? However, this is not the only way of dealing with string formatting. Instead of formatting operators like the ones we've just seen, we can use another notation, replacing %s, %d, or %f with a pair of curly braces. Also, after the string, the % operator we used for mapping the values is going to be replaced by a method called format. Let's type this in. So what we did is we replaced the old formatting operators with curly braces, and right after the string we used a dot, the word format, which is the name of the method, and then the content inside the parentheses stays the same. Again, we're mapping each pair of curly braces inside the string template with each value inside the parentheses of the format method, and the result is the same. Is this all there is to it? Well, no, it isn't. What else? We can also use some sort of indexing when dealing with this type of string formatting. Why? You'll see why in just a few moments. Let's assign a value for each of these pairs of curly braces. Okay, so if we run this line of code, the result is the same. That's because 0 right here is mapped to the first value in between parentheses, 1 is mapped to the second value, and so on. Nothing unusual here. So why do we need these values, these indexes, after all? Let's say that maybe you want to switch the order in which the values on the right are mapped to the operators inside the string. What will happen if we change our code like this? Let me type this in. Well, we're noticing that we have easily switched the order of values inside our string using this simple trick right here by switching the values, the indexing as well. Although the mapping is still the same, meaning 0 still corresponds to 2600 XM, because it is the first element inside these parentheses, its position inside the string has changed according to our needs. Another thing we can do is value repetition inside the string template. So for instance, if we want 12.4 being printed instead of 2600 XM, we can just use it twice in our string. Once in its initial position and once instead of the substring at index 0. For this, all you have to do is replace 0 with 2 in the initial template, and you will get the corresponding value printed out twice inside the string. So let's try this. Instead of 0, 1, and 2 as we had initially, now we have 2, 1, and 2, thus repeating 12.4 in our string. Let's test this. Nice, just what we wanted. Now it's time to wrap up things with strings by learning about string slices.